What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video. And today we're going to be talking about more esports box club. Now yesterday or whenever it was I made the video talking about my experiences, like my overall just, first thoughts on the game. And then I made all the things that I really genuinely enjoyed. Now today I'm going to be offering my feedback, some things that need to be improved, added, and things like that. Because, at the end of the day, as much as people think that we don't want to give feedback and that these guys don't want to hear it, they do. They were generally awesome. A lot of the devs were coming in and talking to us and, what do you think? What can be improved? And they spoke to us about, the current build and what's going on with it and the build that we're playing and what the plans, what to be implemented, this and that. And, as a team, they're absolutely brilliant. And a lot of the stuff I'm going to mention, I'd say some of the stuff that I'm going to mention, the guys are already aware of, and some of it may already have been fixed or balanced slightly more in some way. Because obviously throughout the 2 days, we played a lot, we brought up a lot, and a lot of stuff they were like, yep, don't worry, we know, or okay, that's new, so let's talk about it. I'm not going to be covering basic bugs, like just little issues that the game had, because the bugs are very apparent. There's not like a tiny little bug. Like if there's a bug that I saw as a bug, they already know and they knew how to actually fix it when we were playing. So I'm not going to bring up bugs like that because those things they're aware of. I'm going to bring up more gameplay and more realistic boxing sense, when we talk about it. So anyways, let's jump into it. So while on the positives videos, we spoke about the fighters, the corners, the get-ups, the judges, then we moved on to the gameplay. I have no real negatives on the fighters. I like the get-up, the corner, the minigame. The fighters themselves, they look amazing. Each fighter perfectly looks like themselves. Like Crawford looked just incredible. I mean, they all do, but Crawford and like Ben, they just looked like, honestly, they looked the nuts. They really did. The issues are more with gameplay, not with so much how the fighters act. The only fighter that doesn't act like themselves, really, is Wilder. But that's down to the one-punch power completely sleeping someone. That's kind of the only thing that doesn't make him Wilder, is because he doesn't have that big right that can just... And that's because we were playing in more of a casual mode, which was a two-step block, and there wasn't one-punch knockouts. There's one-punch drops, flash drops. So, the Wilder one-punch thing and the 6-axis blocking is going to be more for the hardcore mode that they plan on doing. So, the players get the best of both worlds. So anyways, let's move on to the gameplay and the feedback and issues I'd like to offer. Now, of course, the other creators, there was Reese with me, then there was Juiced, Fanatico, Showbiz, and Coach. In North Carolina with Rackzilla. I'm sure those guys experienced things when we've spoke obviously since then, and they've experienced things, I've experienced things. Obviously, of course, we're all having different experiences. That's what's great about the game, is some of us are seeing things that no one else saw and we haven't seen since, and that's what's brilliant about it. So their videos may be different on their feedback, but for me, from someone that was like always trying to envisage myself in that ring and use a fighter to their absolute, these are my feedback and point, which I hope help with like feedback to the developing team. So yeah, let's for the final time, let's jump into it. So I'm going to start with movement. The one thing off the back is the slips, which obviously was a clicking of the stick. I'm going to get my controller, which was a clicking of the stick. So you click and go like that. And for me, it felt fun because I'm moving with this and I can slip. So I can move, I can walk forward and slip. The slips were pretty inconsistent. They didn't work every time. And it kind of made me lose trust in wanting to use them, because I'd be close and, I'd pick up, and when I get to a certain point, he'd throw that straight and I'd click it and I'd just stand there and take a punch to the face. Kind of disappointing when it's like inconsistent. So that's something that needs to be made sure that even if someone is going slip, that the fighter is doing this. And yes, of course, it may exhaust you, but I suppose, I don't want it to be inconsistent or have a time limit on it. I want it to be able to slip. Because if someone is coming towards me and slip, left, right, I know the second they come towards me, they're going to go left, right. So the second they go left, I'll just throw. So when they when they go to the right, they take the shot to the chin. And so there's counters to it. So I think the slips need to be more consistent. This is a big one for me, and that's weaves. You just don't move enough as a whole. You're in a cone. I appreciate that you can't like be all the way down here. Like, there is a limit to it. But I felt like I was like this. I felt like this was my movement in the weave. I want to be able to pull back like this. I was like here. This is what I felt like I could do. I was doing this. I want to be able to pull back all the way. So if someone overextends with the straight, I can pull back all the way and follow up with that uppercut. A bit like Canelo and Miguel Cotto. That was a good counter uppercut, and that was a prime example. Overextending with the shot, pull them back with the weave, and bang like that. And the weave gives you more freedom than the slip, in my opinion, because the slip is just this, and the weave gives you more freedom to be like that. Another thing to build on with the weave is when you lean backwards. One thing I noticed is that when you lean backwards with the weave, so you're leaning back with L2 and you're pulling back, is if you go to block the body, there was two ways to do it. You could be blocking with this, and you could do that to block, or you could do this at the same time. So you could do that. And I noticed that when you're leaning back and you're like this and you block the body, your fighter will immediately sit up. You cannot lean back and block the body at the same time. At least that's the experience that me and Reese had when trying it over and over again and showing some of the developers. The switch stance, that's part of the movement. It didn't really work too well, but those things I know they've already mentioned are being fixed and sorted. That's just something I wanted to bring up because I know that I haven't mentioned switch stance, and that's the reason, because it wasn't very usable. Which is cool, but hopefully that will make sure that the switch stance, by the way, works well. That you can snap really quickly with some fighters. You can snap switch stance, and it's not like clunky or nothing. You can do it while moving. It's just that sometimes it doesn't allow you to block a certain way or throw punch a certain way when you switch stance with certain fighters. So that's my only issue with that one. Moving when rocked, we spoke about this a lot, and like I've said before, Ash, the owner of Still Sit Interactive, he was super. He was just all ears for everything we had to say. And when you're rocked, there is something great about it where your fight is kind of all over the show, but they do move pretty quick. And a lot of people we played with had struggled cutting the ring off. And you could almost just keep spinning to get away from the rock. Obviously, you could throw the hook as they're coming, you could catch them. But if they're able to go and then back away, you can't really catch them. So that's like a balancing act again. You don't want them to move too slow. And also, I feel like when they're rocked and they move into the ropes and corner, there's no repercussions at the moment. There needs to be some kind of repercussions where if you're rocked and you hit the corner, you can't just quickly move while still stunned. You might use it to hold yourself up. That's just my thoughts on the movement part of things. Then we go on to the striking as a whole. And for the basics, I want to start off by saying the jabs and the straights, they are not where their animation is brilliant. What they do is not good enough. The jab, I suppose, does what it does, which is cool. The power jab does a good amount. The standard jab does a good amount. But the straight doesn't do much. Now, I'm someone that likes to throw my straight, and I can set it up and it can go straight down the pipe fast, snap, push someone's head back, hurt someone. I didn't really feel that with my straight in this. I felt like I was relatively limited to why use it. It felt better to lead with the lead hook and throw the straight just to add on, as opposed to setting up and bang. Even the power straight didn't seem to do too much. So I think that the jab and the straights, they definitely need to, because the more powerful the straight is and the more powerful, let's say, the hooks are, the better the jab becomes, because you use the jab to set up strikes. The jab doesn't need to be powerful. The jab just needs to be more useful than it is right now in terms of making this punch more powerful, So when you're setting up your jab, because it really, the straight, the only time I saw it rock someone was when someone stepped into it and it rocked someone, but it didn't hurt anyone, it didn't bother anyone. So yeah, I just prefer the straight to be a little bit more powerful. Uppercuts as a whole, they miss way too much. Even on the inside, they seem to just do this, seem to glide. Even if we're both standing still, they just kind of, I don't know, just kind of like a wet flannel. Just like they didn't do much. So that's something I didn't actually bring up when I was there. I kept testing it, but they just never seemed to want to work. And me and Reese definitely realised that in our best of 3 towards the end of the night. We realised that the uppercuts just weren't doing what they needed to do in terms of damage, landing, and everything like that. Speed-wise, the uppercuts are brilliant. That's the annoying thing, is speed-wise, animation-wise, they are perfect. Whether you counter them or not, they are perfect. Like if you get on the inside and you throw that hook and you bang, and someone's head retracts and you bring it up, it looks brilliant. It just doesn't want to land hardly ever. Now counters are something that I love watching, I love doing in real life, and I love doing in video games. Like I said, the uppercut counters are even more of an issue. There was an example where in the best of 3 that me and Reese had, I threw a shot, he slipped, and he threw this perfect slip uppercut straight to the head, and it literally went and done nothing. Not even the fact that my fighter ate it. If my fighter ate it and it kind of went bang, fair enough, but it didn't. It just, the punch didn't exist in that, which was that would have been really cool to see. But sometimes we did see it, but other times not so much. And, you know, straight counters were pretty cool. Me and the office champion, we had a few, like, you know, where we were on the inside and we pulled back and caught that straight. And that was nice. Like, the weave, like I said, is not as good as it should be. But pull back and straight, that's like a nice animation. It's a nice speed. But there wasn't much to. I think we caught each other with like 4 or 5 respectively within the same, like, 30, 40 seconds. We were both just, like, trying to... Like what? And there was a point where I think I pulled back, he missed, then he pulled back. So it was like, and then he eventually connected with me, done nothing. I threw again, he connected with me again. I threw again, he done. I think he connected with me 3 times on the bounce in like a 10-second span. Done nothing. All I had to do was just back away. So, you know, I know it's not the most powerful shot, but it didn't even make my fighter react. Because sometimes in this game, what will happen is you'll get caught with a good shot and your fighter will not be rocked, not be stunned, just kind of go like, fuck, like step to the side, like react to it. But he didn't react at all to any of these counter straights that we threw. Now, another one is feints. Now, unless you become somewhat predictable like I did, I mentioned it, I think, in my other video, and that's the fact that I threw the hook a lot, the lead hook, until I started noticing that the person I was fighting thought I was predictable. So as I went to throw the lead hook, I feinted. So I done this animation, feinted, uppercut come up, and actually did connect. But the feints with the jabs and the straights aren't told enough. They're like this. And in the game, the thing is with this game is it's so like brilliantly real with the movement is you're not just like this, you're not stiff. Every fighter is, you know, kind of moving, and the block is you know, as they're moving, it's not stiff. That's the thing with the game, it's not stiff. So with the feints, the jabs and straights, they need to be, you know, boom, foot down, boom. Or if you're going to do a body feint to the jab, you drop. Whereas a lot of it's just this motion. And with the straight, you know, you need to, there was no shoulder motion with it. So I'd like to see the jab and the straight feint sold a bit more, as opposed to just this tiny little motion. Maybe it's just me. I mean, I know when we spoke to some of the other creators, they also were saying like the feints aren't much, and the feints were brilliant if you set them up to be predictable and you set them up with the hooks, the uppercuts, or the power hooks and uppercuts. But jabs and straights as a whole, I feel like, you know, I like to like, you know, stomp and boom, so then I get someone's reaction. But there was none of that happening. Not even, like, people weren't even seeing that I was feinting with the jab. Admittedly, like, Ash noticed that, like, he said, oh, Studdy's actually using the feints. And the feints work well. It's just that straight and the jab feint, they're not sold enough. So, I mean, I don't know. You know, it's tough for me to... I'm kind of just doing this from a boxing standpoint. I obviously don't know what it takes to code a game. I'm just trying to give feedback as articulate as I can, really, as opposed to trying to understand how to code a game, because there's no chance of that happening. Power punches need to be a little bit more rewarding. The power jab felt like the best one, if I'm honest. I'm sure the other guys will disagree, but the power jab felt like the one that was the most useful, and what felt like it was rewarding because it would push people back and it would stop them in their tracks. The others didn't feel like they'd done too much, but that's just me. I think people will disagree with that one, to be honest, though. You'll have to. I'll be interested to see what the other creators say about the power shots. Now let's move on to damage. I've done it in sections, as you can tell. I've done movement, strikes, damage, and then a couple more after this. First thing I want to point out that we knew already is that the body hooks are too powerful. The body straight and the body jabs work nicely. If someone throws a jab at you or throws a big hook and you drop your body and throw the straight, I'm expecting a bit of a pushback, maybe a stun, maybe even a drop. And, you know, when I was getting hit against one of the QAs with body straights, we went 10 rounds until my stomach was visibly hurt. Whereas you land 7, 8 body hooks, round 1, you got a yellow side. You do it a bit more, you got an orange side. You do it a bit more. Come round 3, that's a red side, and that's 1 punch and it's over. So that was one thing that we noticed. The second you get these red symbols for your side being red, 1 punch, guard there or not, doesn't matter. You're getting rocked, you're getting dropped. But that's something that we brought up. And, you know, something that was mentioned, and, you know, that's already been made very aware of. The counters, don't get me wrong, were great. Slipping, body shot, dropped, brilliant. But just standing here and just going, far too powerful. Wide open head counters don't seem to do much. You know, there was definitely we could definitely see a flash, and there was definitely a few rocks with some head counters, but maybe not as many as there should have been. Of course, a lot of the fighters we used, you could argue, have a pretty solid chin anyways, like Fury, Crawford, you know, fighters that maybe have been hurt or dropped a few times, but have not been knocked out, like tough chin guys. Gatty, you know, he's not got no glass chin, so maybe that we could argue that maybe if we use Khan, it would have been a different ball game because he's got a bit of a weaker chin. So maybe that was the reason. But I feel like the head counters just weren't rewarding enough. It didn't make sense to try and counter to the head. Like I said, when me and the Office Champion were fighting, we done some straight counters to the head. You know, it worked well. I think I ended up with like a yellow here, and he ended up with an orange here or something like that. So you know, it was pretty competitive. But yeah, the head counters just maybe need to do a little bit more. Because, you know, sometimes you could have like several hundred punches to the head and there'd be very little damage shown on the little icon. So, you know, that's kind of my point there. Now, of course, cuts and bruises with the damage, they weren't actually in this build. The blood was visible on the canvas, but the cuts and bruises visually on your fighters' faces were not visible in this build, at least from what I could see. You know, so it's kind of tough. You know, I mean, we use Ward and Gatty, and Gatty's quite prone to cuts, and Gatty seemed to have nothing on him. When I went 12 rounds with Crawford, and Crawford seemed to have nothing on him. So, you know, that's the only thing I have there, is they weren't in this build, so I can't really argue too much about that. But I'd like to see cuts and bruises in the future for sure, because the blood on the canvas looks brilliant. Like, it doesn't just fall in chunks, it falls, you know, you get hit and the blood will go like that across the canvas. It's fantastic, it really is. Now we're going to move on to stamina. Now, stamina will recover wildly too much. The way I like to fight is I've changed my style from the old school Fight Night careers, and I very much like to drain people's stamina. I like to land body shots. I try not to use too many hooks because it was a bit overpowered. So when I fought the devs, we done a lot of straights and jabs to the body. I like to make them miss. You know, make them miss a lot. But like 60% of the time, it didn't matter too much because they recovered a crazy amount of stamina. However, one thing I will say is the stamina can go down. The lowest I saw it was 8 out of 100, as in the stamina percentage. But I think I pretty much I was fighting one of the QAs, and we had a really good back and forth, but I made him miss tons. I was whoop, and I was out of the way, lots of back steps, and he had like 8 stamina going to like round 6 or something, because he had missed so much. He was throwing power shots, he just couldn't hit me with them. But then he came into the next round with 30, and it's like that's a far too wide gap of recovery for someone that was dominated in that round. But that's pretty much my only thing for stamina. It just recovers a bit too fast. I like the way that if you both take your time and you play a lot of footsies and you're very cagey and jab heavy, that the stamina doesn't just go because the game feels like it should. When the stamina did work well and the recovery wasn't crazy, it did work. You know, when we done Crawford vs Crawford, me and the Office Champ, we were decent stamina coming towards the end of the fight because we hadn't just blown our asses out throwing massive hooks. It worked well. It's just sometimes the stamina recovered way too much, which is already addressed and they already knew about it. But it's just something I wanted to bring up. Now, one more thing, because I know I'll get questions about it, and that is the clinch. The clinch was implemented in this build, but it was super early, so you would just hook the arms and do nothing else. They have mentioned that there will be strikes in the future, there will be an ability to block and some kind of work in the clinch. As of right now, we do not know, but it looked okay. Sometimes there was a few bugs with the clinch, but when you got a good clinch, you would hook the arms and the person's arms would hook your ribs and you would hold it like that, head to head, and you'd be pushing shoulder to shoulder, then you'd break and you'd do that. And one more thing I just want to add onto the kind of the inside fighting. The other thing with the clinch before I go on is it didn't help in any way. It just helped you not getting hit. There was no recovery to stamina, no bad to stamina. You just clinched to stop someone hitting you and that was it. So I'd like to see maybe what the pros to clinching is other than defending yourself from being punched. The other thing, there was a push feature. Wasn't really implemented in this build. But one thing I want to mention, I spoke to one of the lead QA about it. And one thing that I'd like to see is when you're up close, instead of on the inside, you try and push double-handed. When you're on the inside, you do this and you push with your shoulder. That's something I'd like to see. That is my feedback in a negative standpoint. Not really overly negative, just some things that need to be fixed and added. And this is all just from my opinion. Of course, make sure you watch the videos of Concept Reese, who was there with me, Fanatico, King Juice, Showbiz, and Coach's Corner. Because they'll all have different views. For example, I sucked with Rocky Marciano, but I know Showbiz was good with Rocky Marciano. I'm doing it from a young fighter point of view, which is myself, who's using a lot of jabs, using my range. Even though I'm quite a light guy, I'm using my height and my range. Whereas Coach is a coach. Fanatico has got, I don't know how old Fanatico is, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but 30 years of watching the sport. You know, I believe King Juice used to box, or maybe I think he still does, I'm not too sure. And, you know, Reese as well, he's been watching the sport since he was a young guy. So there's going to be lots of different thoughts and opinions. I'm tackling it from from me. That's why like a lot of my thing was about the movement needs to be a bit more fluid. However, I loved the footwork and the loose movement, like I mentioned in my positive video. So while this wasn't negative, and like I said, I'm not gonna shit on it. I'm not gonna be an arse, because it was super exciting to play. But these are just some things that I think need to be addressed, and you know, so maybe, you know, if they do another creator event, and if, say, I'm lucky enough to go to it again, we can look back at this video and we can say, okay, these were the issues last time. Now let's see if these things have been fixed, and let's see what's changed. So I feel like this was a good way to get it out and cover some things. So you guys, you guys know that I went there and I'd done my research. You know, people still seem to think that I didn't do any research. I can tell you guys, I done a lot of research, like on repeat. And you know, a lot of this is terribly written. Like, some of it just makes no sense really, but it's all really, you know, it's just, I mean, it's terrible. My handwriting is shocking. But, you know, there was so much more in here that I can talk about, and I will talk about. That's annoying. But, you know, I just wanted to, you know, make a pros and a cons in a sense. And yeah, because people thought that we were only going to cover positives. Absolutely not. I'm going to cover things that weren't as good, things that need to be implemented and fixed, and things that need to be added in the future. But one thing I just want to say is, while this video was kind of long, as was the positives video, that the team are absolutely incredible. From everyone, from the guys who are doing the coding, the art team, the QAs, you know, Ash himself. Honestly, guys, the things that these guys were coming in, they were so open. They were not like negative towards I don't want to say our negativity, but towards our criticism. They weren't butthurt by it at all. Some of them were taking notes. Like one of the devs kept taking notes when we said things. You know, Ash was getting people to write things down, and they really, really cared. And I think that's why this video is important and needs to be made. And don't get me wrong, there are probably things in here that I've said that you guys will agree with. Some will, some won't, and the team might go, not happening. I get it. I completely understand. And, you know, but I'm only doing it from a pure boxing point, just as myself. And I look forward to the other content creators videos on this and seeing what's up. But yeah, I'm going to end it here. So thank you as always for watching. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. And like I said, man, you know, big shout out to the developers. You know, I don't know how happy they were. Like, I think they might have been a bit worried for us to play the game. But honestly, these guys have absolutely smashed it. They should be nothing but proud of themselves. For how far the game has grown since the start-ish, the first like 4 months of 2020 to now. You know, 2 years. I think they only recently had their 2-year anniversary. 2 years to what I played, guys. Seriously, the team is fucking nuts to butts. They're insane, and nothing but respect for them all. Awesome dudes, and I look forward to seeing what they do in another, you know, next time we see gameplay, 6 whatever months, 8 months, a year, whatever. I look forward to seeing what they do, you know, in the future, and hopefully we'll be able to see some more gameplay in a couple of months, and, you know, maybe like a newer build or something. But yeah, thank you as always for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.